Okay, so welcome to our deep dive for Chayei Sarah, and I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Reva Emunah Seidel, who is a well-known teacher here in Tzfat. And before we go straight into it, I want to give a few thank yous. Firstly, to Rabbi Traxler of the Artists Quarter Minyan, who's given us the beautiful accommodation of the synagogue to be able to do the Zoom interview. And also to my dear and beloved friend Elio Berere, who's really masterminded the technical details behind these podcasts. I could never have done it without him, and he's a tremendous resource, and I thank him very much. So, Reva, before we go into the Alshech's questions, and we're focusing on just two sentences, in Chayei Sarah, two sentences.
Yeah.
Before we go into the beautiful teachings that the Alshech has given us, and to find out how it applies to our lives today, what I wanted to do was just ask you, imagine that you had a clear plain canvas, and you had to describe Sarah, the neshama, and her mission to somebody who's not so well adversed with the Pisukim. How would you describe who she was? I'm trying to, and the reason I'm asking that is that often in the texts we see that Sarah is like secondary. It's always Abraham the subject, and Sarah is in secondary. But we know that God told Abraham, "Listen to your wife. Like she's a higher, has a higher nevuah than you." But we don't hear many words from her. So help us maybe with the midrash to extrapolate some beautiful midot from her.
Okay, thank you. The first thing that comes to my mind is her desire to restore dignity to every human being, to every being, to every person. You know, there's a piece of Chazal that I love so much, that the Shekhinah ran away right up into the seventh heaven,
Yeah.
right? And Abraham and Sarah contracted to coax her right out of hiding, at least one layer and one level. And you know, this is this quality that we speak about so much: Ish, Isha, and Shekhinah B'neihem. So if she was all the way up there, what was happening to Ish and Isha without that in the world, all the way up into the seventh heaven? And then what was happening to the children? And we know, right? Because it was a world of violence and cruelty and, right,
In Adam's time, in Avram's time, you mean?
up until Abraham's time.
Yes.
So,
They were the first to reverse the gradual distancing of the Shekhinah from us as a result of how humans behaved.
yeah.
So that was a game changer, a change of course for the world.
I think when I was preparing, something that was really a chidush for me this year is I always thought of her as being a bit gvuradik
Yes.
because of the story with Hagao and because of
Yes.
what she says, right? Hashem will judge between me and you. And I always had like this little sense of she's a little takfani, she's a little tough, you know, in the best way, but tough. And this year when I was preparing these, so if you're giving me this wonderful blank canvas, I would just fill it with, she is in the holiest, most full, beautiful sense, she is a lover. I mean, these midrashim speak about her nursing the whole world. What does that mean, to nurse the whole world?
Right.
Right? Literally,
Literally,
spiritually,
she was nursing all
emotionally,
the
but
children.
on every level. That's how deep her love was, that it penetrated all states of consciousness, all worlds. And then what does it mean to nurse somebody? So I was really contemplating that, right? That there was something about her you know, as a mother, when I thank God got to nurse my children, right? it's like a sense to instill in them the underlying goodness of life, the underlying safety, and put it into their blood and their bones for the rest of their life, that when you are in pain, someone or something cares. When you have a need, right? It's a benevolent world. That's what I think it is to nurse somebody. So these, and then there's all these midrashim. What struck me, something really incredible, interesting, and also for women of my age, I thought this was kind of fascinating. She's one of 4 of the most beautiful women in the world, right? Say Chazal.
Who Esther was one, right?
Yeah, so Sarah and Rachav, Abigail, and Esther. So me as a woman, the first thing that struck me as all of the Perushim I know from all of these women, they were not young. There are Mefarshim that say that Esther was 75, right? That Rachav had quite a long life with many interactions, right? When she met Yoshua. Abigail was already married before, right? And Sarah is an old woman, and she goes backwards to find connection again with her beauty and her youth and what's her real beauty. So she's incredibly beautiful. The Torah goes on, Yafat To'al, Yafa Mar'ah. I mean, I wrote it even because I was I was so stunned. Oh, it's in here, but just all the Chazal go out of their way so much to speak of her beauty.
Right, and Avram himself.
And Abraham himself, right? But there seems to be like all of this curiosity around, right here. So here she's Na'a Yafa, she's Yafat To'al, she's Yafat Mal'ah. She's called Yiska because people would, essentially be just completely blown away by her beauty, right? And yet, I don't know, we just have all these questions.
It's interesting, I was sitting at the Alshech shul at Shabbat learning, and these guys from America, LA, come in, and they were in the fashion business. They heard I was in the fashion business. They said, would you be our consultant? I said, no. But if you want some guidance, why don't you create clothes for women that accentuate their spirituality instead of their body? And
interesting.
Yeah, it was just interesting that you say that. So, but let's look at the words that she does say. I mean, I picked up, like you did, on the harshness. It sounds harsh. The words, the 2 incidents. Firstly, when she, when Hagar flees, leaves her. Rashi there says that Sarah actually gave Hagar an ayin hara, and when I read that, I thought, what? Our maternal mother gave somebody else an ayin hara? And the other incident was, which we quoted in the podcast, that when she was discussing Hagar again with Abraham, she says to Abraham, may God judge between me and you. And we mentioned that in Gemara Rosh Hashanah, 33 years of her life were curtailed. So with these interviews, I always try to bring the relevance of these Pesukim to us, and surely there's such a strong message there, isn't there, that we should be very mindful and guarding what we say and who we ask Hashem to judge, because when we ask Hashem to judge anybody, the first person that gets judged is the accuser, before Hashem looks at the thing, and it's such a powerful idea. I mean, I hope I never ask Hashem to judge anybody moving forward. But any thoughts on that, in that sort of gevura harshness? Because that's the impression I got of Sarah when I was initially reading through the text.
Maybe this is a feminine way of learning Torah, I don't know, because I'm not a man, but I find whatever I'm learning, it sort of runs through my own system, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. And I sort of know it, maybe that's what Bina means, but I sort of know it because I find resonance in my own experiences. So what really kind of invited me into these texts is I think that as the partufim of chesed, and they're both the partufim of chesed, and that's very clear, right? Sometimes we think like he's chesed and she's gvura, but that's not the way Chazal teach it. So I think that in my own life, in wanting so much to learn about love and mastering love, I've had to fail at love many times, right? And I've also had to learn that love requires two ingredients, and without, the two wings. I was like very like that kind of overflowing river type, and Sarah brings in through trial and experience that yes, love, but once it crosses into pagam, the kavod of the Shekhinah, that's where there has to be gvulot. There has to be dignity. Right? There has to be this place, and it's interesting because when you mention Hagar, right? Do you mean chasing them out of the house, or do you mean when she says? When she
flees, Rashi there points out that she gave her Ain Hara.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to do with that.
I know, yeah. Again, I can, sometimes when I speak with my friends, we speak about something, let me say upstairs, downstairs, meaning my experience as a human being, as a woman, and then my experience in my higher consciousness. And sometimes they're bistira, they contradict one another, and sometimes, hopefully, more and often than not, hopefully they're in harmony, right? But again, I see them together as trying to learn this dance of unconditional love, because that's what they are. They're chesed, right? Make no mistake. And they become the basis. They become, chesed is treated differently than all of the other sfirot, right?
Because the world is built on it.
Ken, olam chesed yibaneh, right?
I wanted to suggest something to you, and just tell me if this sounds right to you. I would like to suggest the following, because I feel that one of the things I'm trying to learn in life is to have clarity on our life mission and to be very focused on achieving it, because it's so easy to be diverted. And maybe the way we could look at it is that one of her life missions was to create a whole nation out of Yitzchak, and so anything that came in front of that, obstructed that, she would have no chesed for. I mean, like she would have no room for tolerance, because that would contradict directly with her primary mission.
May I answer honestly?
Yeah.
That does not feel resonant to me.
Doesn't feel resonant
at all.
Okay.
Like,
that's probably a man's perspective.
Honestly, it feels more masculine.
It probably is.
Can I interject something?
We're gonna have the questions opening at the end, but please, I'd love to hear what you have in mind.
I just came in late, so I'm coming in.
Okay, so
you're talking about Sarah. Correct?
I'm just gonna hold you there. Sarah Emunah. That's the subject of the thing. So let me ask you, Reva, do you this connection between Sarah and Rivka? How do you read that? Because here comes Rivka, who's actually the granddaughter of Sarah's sister, Mira, and she comes in and she miraculously continues the three miracles that Sarah Emunah has, and this is a great source of comfort to Yitzchak. What is their connection? I mean, did they ever meet even? I mean, I'm not sure.
That's such a good question. Well, the Kedushas Levi, Reb Levi Yitzchak Mibrujitchev, he actually says they're the same neshama. That's why you see that it says like shemesh, lo hashemesh shak'a ad she zarcha shamsha shel Rivka, right?
Yes.
And the
Do you want to
Kedushas
say that in
Levi
English?
says, yes. No sooner had the sun gone down on Sarah's life than immediately we hear of the birth of Rivka, and it adds up,
It's immediately the pasuk before it.
Yeah.
In Vayera.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that adds a really juicy layer, and I do think we are often drawn to do the tikkun with someone who carries energetically parts of our parents' story.
Right.
And so when you say about the drive for the tikkun, I do feel that. I definitely feel that. It just felt a little different in my body than the way you were saying it. But that drive, and I think many women feel this drive, to heal the family stories.
Well, let's just focus on that a bit, because I was just amazed at the Kabbalistic notion, which I hadn't. I mean, I guess I picked up on it when we hear Avram say, God says to Avram, "Listen to your wife."
And we're all
finally! Yeah, finally. And compared to when he says to Adam, because you listen to your wife, the earth will be cursed. I mean, like, it has to be a tikkun there. And then the Alshech goes and confirms it with this midrash. But what do you think about the idea of, finally Sarah comes in to fix the sin of Chava, and that's continued by the work of Rivka, says the Alshech, and our dear Rav Yirmiyahu pointed out that continues with Rachel and Leah, and indeed all the women till today. Why is it so difficult to remove this influence of the Satan, nearly 6,000 years ago?
Oh, I really wanted to answer that.
Oh, good, because I really want to hear the answer.
Because something that came up in our learning group very strongly this year is this idea that, the Alshech says that Abraham and Sarah came to fix Adam v'Chava, right? And he goes step by step, right?
Yes.
Adam and Chava brought death, Abraham and Sarah brought life. Adam and Chava brought wounding to the world through food, which is so interesting. And Adam v'Chava, Abraham and Sarah bring healing to the world through food. I loved that.
Yeah.
There seems something to really unpack there. And let's see.
And the Shekhinah going up.
The Shekhinah going up
going
and the
down.
Shekhinah coming back down, right? And they brought klala into the world,
That's
curse.
right, curse.
It doesn't resonate that word, but
Yeah.
I would say suffering. They brought
Yeah.
suffering to the world, and Abraham and Sarah's whole mission was to relieve suffering.
And by being a blessing, through you, the whole world will be blessed.
Yeah.
I mean, the direct tikkun, fixing of that.
So we were looking in our women's learning of like, well, okay, so if there was klala, and then Chava was a part of the creation of that klala. Many Meforshim say intentionally, right, with great love, also with great love, and very much that ima energy, but still, right. And Sarah and Abraham, right, are coming, but Sarah, obviously, right, Abraham is Mikayel the Gvarim and Sarah the Nashim, so she's really about embedding this into the feminine so that they can partner with the masculine in a more healed way, both of us together, right? So we were like looking at the klalot, because that is Sarah's mission.
The klalot at
Chava's klalot is what
good.
happens to the three, what happens to the masculine, what happens to the feminine, and we might say what happens to Shechina B'nehem, right? Because there were three partners there.
Right.
So here.
So what did you discover? I'm so curious.
Okay, and so this is it. This is such a deep piece that I'm going to read it, right? And women will recognize this immediately. So El Ha'isha Amal, right? Ha'obe Aobe Itzvonech V'Helonech, right? Something will happen where emotionally, spiritually, biochemically, physically, psychologically, right? When we're conceiving children, there's a sadness present in the conception. There's a sadness during gestation, right? Be'etzev tildi banim. And these are children. Now, Sarah came to fix this, right? So we have to keep in mind, this is the klala. The klala is our children being born through states of the parents' sadness. Yeah?
Right, okay. I'm just trying to
But
understand
I mean,
what
this
that
is what we're
means.
saying is the generational pain.
Uh-huh.
And passing on the generational woundings of individual, of masculine, of feminine, right? Ve'el ishech teshukatech, all of your tshuka, all of your yearning and your longing is going where? Not up. It's going this way, right? It's going to, there's something that the feminine is wanting their husband, our husbands to bring us, our husbands to give us, right? But this is considered a curse, right? I mean, we know it as women. We know this feeling as, right? Vehu yimshalbach. And it's interesting, we can read it as the who is your husband.
Right.
Or the who is that it's this desire that is controlling you.
That's nice.
Right? That
That's
there's,
nice.
and so along comes Sarah. So each thing here is like the wounding. And Sarah is coming to restore. Right? Hamtaka, because we have the hachna'ah, the havdalah. Sarah is coming to begin the hamtaka. Sorry, we have the breaking, really, the shattering, the surrendering. We have sifting, and we have sweetening. How to put the pieces back together in a more full, more authentic, more
So
healthy
Sarah is
way.
doing the third of those
She's
tasks?
beginning the hamtaka. I mean, listen, it's all, she has to go through her own breaking and her own havdalah. But when you talked about her mission,
Yes.
her mission is, the Shekhinah has been up there for, into the seventh heaven, and the hamtaka is to bring the energy of, what do we mean when we say Shekhinah? I mean, I would ask you, you don't know that you're supposed to
That's
be
a great
interviewing me.
question. Yes,
Because
a great
she's
question.
all about the Shekhinah. So what is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, it's translated as God's presence.
Yeah,
But what
okay.
does that mean?
What does it mean experientially?
I'll have to give it some thought. Do you have any ideas on that?
Yes.
Oh, please share them with us.
She's all about Hashwa'at HaShekhinah. She has this cloud, the Ananei HaKavod, by the way, which are, it's funny, we translate it clouds of glory, which means nothing to us. But when you say Ananei HaKavod are these wonderful borders and boundaries that keep Kedusha v'Tahara and maintain dignity.
That's what you started off with, saying she's bringing dignity back into the world.
But she heals something so profound here to redirect the tshuka of women. That this is the curse. The curse is when our yearning and our longing is my validation, my worth, my avodah, and I mean, again, this might feel a little foreign to you, but as women, we know this.
Yeah, this is
Especially
really
the obsession with her beauty,
Yes.
right? And if that's always going to be the mirror that everything is measured against, and she adds something so new. It's the kavod of the Shekhinah, of the divine feminine.
Could you help translate that into 2022? What does that mean in today's terms to you as a woman? I mean, if Sarah was in our generation,
And she is.
how would she be manifesting what you just said, do you think?
There's a love that's that has this quality of the emptiness, right? And we might even call it a back-to-back relationship of really the common denominator would be using, even though we don't like that word, right? Where it's either my ratzon against your ratzon, or my ratzon to get something from you and your ratzon to get something from me. We call that back to back, right? And that's this kind of you know how I would best describe it? Just waiting for my life to begin, because there's my values all one, right? And so the healing of this is having a relationship with Shekhinah within, right? Having that relationship, and that one is like full, that's coming from a sense, from a place of fullness and sharing that light. And of course, there's always chisaron, meaning we're there to support one another. But it's a very different experience. And I have experienced it directly also, I think, and I would actually love to ask you, just in my observations from my own relationships and also observing, it also seems that it sets up almost this dynamic that the more almost, it's not a lovely word, and I don't have the right word, but desperate that women show up as in the relationship, the more I find that the masculine pulls back. And when she's like really connecting this way with her light and her soul and her mission and her gifts and her talent and her chesed and her midot, and then she seems to have a different strength, right?
Because when I think of Sarah, I don't think of her in any way as desperate.
Exactly, she's the fixing of this.
She's the fixing of it.
Exactly.
I see what you mean. I see. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
She's the fixing of this.
I see. But do you sense that even today, women today have this task of continuing her work, of fixing the original sin of Chava?
It's right here.
It's right there.
I mean, I didn't make it up. It's like, I want to be maybe more specific about what I was feeling into about her work, because I do think it's so relevant to us. Love and borders. That's like I just feel like she's just so much about, Rashi says a pretty crazy thing about, and I do think this is highly relevant to today, that when Sarah looks out the window at Yitzchak's weaning party, right, what she sees is Yishmael vayisachek imanal.
Right.
Which Chazal say, really, what Chazal's take on that is?
Yeah.
Sexual abuse.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And how does Chazal get that? From Elimelech. Elimelech? I always mix his name up. The king of Gerar. Right. They again told him that Rivka and Yitzchak are brother and sister.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And we should explain it for.
Wow, I wish we had another half an hour. I feel like we've only just started. I just want to leave you with one question. Maybe we can open it up afterwards to the audience. But we learn in halakha that when a wife passes away, the husband, I think it's right, he says kaddish for 1 month, right? But when a mother passes away, you say kaddish for 12 months. 11 months, thank you. And so I'm thinking always when I'm reading the Pesukim about the relationship between mother and son, about Sarah and Yitzchak. And what puzzles me still to today is that, when she passes away, there's no mention of Yitzchak coming to mourn his mother, right? It's only Abraham. And I kind of feel that something's missing there. And I haven't read anything in the Midrashim about it, but I just wondered what your intuition on that was.
So glad you asked that question. I don't know why he didn't come. I can't address that, but and we spoke about it in the shiur this week. So first of all, let's begin with. She names her son. I mean, Hashem names him, right? But this is a child born right through her. You are going to go through so much shattering, and by you it means you Yitzchak, but it means you Am Yisrael, right? First of all, I just think they're completely bonded. Can I say a few reasons why?
Go on.
Okay, her original name was Sarai. That's Sin, Reish, and Yud. Right? Later on, she's so connected to what's happening here that Yisrael, Shir El, is essentially Sarai and El, right? That's his fixing.
Right.
His whole fixing of the masculine when he goes from Yaakov to Yisrael. There she is, Sarai is back. right?
Very nice.
She's right.
Yeah.
Mamash, right?
Yeah.
And this name of like, in the end, my son, like, right, you are going to have this strength. You're going to have this gvura. And like everything I've done about love, but I've also embedded in you the strength to keep loving, even when love, right, shatters you.
Amazing.
And Sarah goes through those shatterings. I mean, she's taken by Paro. She's the whole story with Hagar, right? It's not. This isn't like a simple love story. And even after he goes back to Keturah, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she just gives him so much strength that in the end, love, wins. And wait, how do we know? Because this is my favorite word in the entire Torah.
Go on.
When Yitzchak brings Sarah into the tent, which is it's
Rivka.
Rivka, but it's really
Oh,
Seder
I see.
Meforshim,
Okay.
the Hamshechi, the
Right.
continuation of Sarah,
Yeah.
right? You feel his heart opening.
Mm.
It's never mentioned anywhere else in the Torah. This word, right?
Ahava.
Va-ye-ha-veha. You can feel it. You can feel the expansiveness.
Yes.
And that's connected to being comforted. Somehow now he's reconnected to Sarah, his mother. So whatever was going on, there was clearly the deepest bond.
Beautiful. Thank you. We've come up to our
Wow,
30 minutes.
that was way too fast.
Yeah, I know. But the good news is that we have an audience with us tonight, and we will be delighted to open up for questions. But before we do, I just wanted to thank Reva really for
Thank you.
being brave enough to come out here and doing our first live Zoom with an audience,
You didn't say what the real bravery is.
which was.
The real bravery is that I absolutely don't know how to metamtam anything.
Yeah, well, that's
ever.
true. Well, you did pretty well.
Trying to
But,
squeeze anything into a half an hour. Is like,
I just want to give you a blessing, because I've just seen you grow over this last year, and from the very few lessons that you did together, we hosted you together, to the abundance of learning that is happening in Tzfat, really down to you. I mean, kol hakavod. May you continue to blossom and grow, and may you spread your Torah, the light of Torah, to all the world, and may they all receive it with great joy. So thank you so much, and let's have a yeah. So I'm gonna actually, Elio's going to be handling the questions, picking out who to, and then summarizing them. Go ahead.
Yitzchak didn't come because he stayed at Har Moriah. Because the Pasuk, only Avram came back. He stayed there, so therefore he didn't. That's why the reason why he didn't.
So we're saying that Yitzchak stayed in Har Moriah, only Avram
That's
came
why
back.
He didn't come to the funeral.
But why did he stay in Har Moriah?
That's another question. You didn't answer that question. You asked why he didn't.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
if I may, I would address that a little bit. I just saw today, right, there are two different opinions of whether Sarah's Yortzeit is on Rosh Hashanah, which I had never seen until today, or that it was in this month of Cheshvan. And it sort of struck me that he did die. He did die. You understand, we die many times in our life. And that's very Cheshvan, or what we call, right, Scorpio energy, is to die and be reborn. And I think that when Chazal, and Chazal have a whole discussion, of whether he died or not, and most of the women who have been studying, us together for a long time, we have a joke already that the answer is always one. What's the answer? Both, right? Because it's happening simultaneously on different levels of consciousness. So,
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Go ahead.
I just came in when you were talking about Sarah, and from what I'm was piecing together that you were mentioning that Sarah's qualities were, her core wasn't about chesed, and you disagreed with him. I don't know your names, I'm new here. And I, you know, there's always so many opinions, but what I learned was that Abraham, his core was all about chesed. I mean, he was sad when he didn't have guests. I mean, he was all about boundless chesed. And Sarah was more constricted and boundaried and had to have Gevurah because it was a balance, because they really balanced each other out. So her core couldn't be all like Abraham of all chesed. So this is, you know, kind of contradicting what you responded to this man.
If you were to pose it in a question, what would the question be?
So I'm just saying, I'm not sure what, but to me it makes more sense that she had more Gevurah and it was Abraham that had more chesed, and I don't think that that's something that is a negative towards women, it's a strength. So.
Would you like to address that?
Yeah,
Just to repeat the question. Sorry, what was your name?
Vina Tirza.
Bina Tirsha was saying that she heard that we were talking about Sarah being Gevurah, or was she Chesed? For sure, Avram was Chesed, but let's try to understand, what was she, Gevurah or Chesed, Sarah?
So again, the nature of learning Kabbalah is, if we understand, usually the goal is synthesis. It's usually like what we call da'at, or the third column, right? So that when we're receiving all these various pieces that tend to give a fractured or a very polarized picture of was she chesed or was she gvura, we're usually going to find that she's works with both. To give some examples of her chesed, that these beautiful, obviously her hachnasat orchim, obviously all these, it says that every human being in the world is actually here because they were birthed through Sarah and nursed through Sarah. That Sarah nursed the entire world. Now that, if that's not an image of chesed, I don't know what. And on the day that Yitzchak was weaned, right? So there's a famous piece of Torah that there was some mocking going on, and it says, "Oh, they just found a baby in the market. Look at look at this little old couple. This didn't happen. They found a baby in the market, and they're pretending it's theirs, right?" So because it's so much about love requires both dignity and softness, right? The two wings together. Hashem makes this nest, and Sarah nurses all the babies who are there. Yeah. I mean, that's an image of chesed.
Yeah. And I'm not saying she had no chesed.
No. Oh no, I didn't think you were saying that at all.
Okay.
And from a woman's perspective, right? What I'm in awe of with her, because I'm in the same place in my own journey, is learning that the gvulot are actually a dimension of love. They're not, but I always polarized it as there's love with no borders, and then there's borders, which feels to me very constrictive. And Sarah's, to me, her chidush is the borders are what actually allow the flow of the love and allow the connection to grow, right? Because it has that dignity, that honoring, that container. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, it's very complex. I mean, that she sent Ishmael and Hagar away sounds like pure Gevurah, but she did it out of love for Yitzchak and seeing what could come from if he stayed.
What I had started to say to Shlomo about that was that Chazal are implying very strongly that what she saw, it's even more what she smelled, because we're in the Chodesh Cheshvan, that she had to be able to identify things that look like love, but they're abuse. And when we're saying Gvura, Ishi Gvura, Ishi Chesed, she herself is weaving through, I think she's learning Bina, because she is Bina. What is Bina? Discernment. I can have deep Bina Liba. Bina Liba. I can love, and I'm also aware of what's truly happening in the space.
There's one more question. Is there anyone? All clear?
Do you have a question?
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is so right on target with what I need right now.
Thank you.
If there's a recording, I'd love to see it later. I'm just wondering if you could explain what you were saying about what Hazal says regarding Elimelech. I kind of missed that.
Yeah, really kind of like, okay, so remember when Rivka and Yitzchak go to the land of the Plishtim, echoing and mirroring, right, everything that Abraham and Sarah did, and so they once again say, we're brother and sister. It's just a whole deep teaching in itself, right? And Elimelech looks out the window and it sees that they are misachkim beyachad, which literally means they're playing. They're playing. But the way that they're playing, he understands they're not brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
It's very intimate, and they're playing in the manner of husband and wife, right? So they learn out from that word that there's a connotation of physical intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So when that same word is used with regard to Yishmael and Yitzchak, shehu mesachek im Yitzchak, that there are Meforshim commentators that come and say that's why Sarah was so clear about this cannot be introduced into this genetic line, right? That it's the opposite. It's about honoring one another, restoring dignity, and sexual abuse shatters dignity. So this cannot be part of what comes through me and Abraham.
So we have to
Sorry,
close.
I thought Elimelech was Naomi's husband. Are you sure?
Avimelech. Sorry, I'm so sorry. That was my mistake. So we just have to wrap it up now. Just to let you know that next week we have the privilege of having Rabbi Rom on Toldot. So that's the whole Inyan of Yaakov and Esav, the battle between them, and the implications for us today is going to be very interesting to bring out. And I just wanted to leave you with one puzzle. Just to show you, by the way, we've just talked about basically 2 Pesukim. Could you imagine? That's the depth of the Torah. It would take forever to complete it. But here's a puzzle. When Avram is discussing the negotiations of the sale of the Machpelah with Ephron is mentioned 7 times in that short passage. And each time it's mentioned with a Vav, spelled with a Vav. But the last time it's spelled without the Vav. Do you know why? And what can we learn from it? That's your quiz for tonight. Anybody who wants to suggest an answer, I'll be happy to share that with
Later,
afterwards or whatever. But I want to thank you again, Reva. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming and hearing it live. And please God, we'll repeat it next week. Thank you so much.